Oh, man. Big noise.
All right, man. So me and you, we met what? That'd have been the fall of 2018. All right.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, man, in Tecumseh, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So take me to the beginning. I know you're from Stratford, right? You're the baby of the bunch, right? You got an older brother.
The baby.
Right. And I got to know your fam just a little bit, but take me through the upbringing in Stratford, America.
So I was born in Ada, so right outside of Stratford.
Right.
Stratford sits in the middle of Ada and Pauls Valley.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll blink, you'll miss it. So one stop sign, and that's about it. Just growing up there was very sheltered. One church kind of runs the whole town. So
Yeah.
you know how small town America works.
True that.
But just growing up, me and my brother, playing for my dad. My mom's a first grade teacher, so couldn't get by with anything.
Oh, no.
Right? So that's pretty much my upbringing in small town America. Yeah.
So when did you start playing sports, man? I would imagine pretty early.
I was probably about 4 or 5 when I actually started playing like competitive type, like starting out.
Are we talking basketball or baseball? I know you played both.
Both. So T-ball started around then, and then I, dribbling a ball wasn't far behind. So just going to my dad's camps and stuff like that, just learned the basics and everything. And I think I actually started playing in my first like rec league type thing, and it was about in 2nd grade. So I was probably about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
So
Did you pick up on it pretty quickly, or did it take a minute?
I was pretty much, I hit the ground running, like left-handed layup, right-handed layup, like all the basics that a kid at that age should know, but we take it for granted as, as being a coach.
Yeah.
That kids can't do that really now, and it's kind of frustrating, but
Yeah.
I think it's all about what starts at home and stuff like that. If they're taught correctly and stuff, they can just build on that. But 7 or 8 is when I started actually playing competitive. So
That frustration point you made is super valid, because like I'm a high school coach now. And
Right.
maybe you wouldn't be surprised because you've seen it, but these guys get up in here 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and I'm still fighting with them to use that non-dominant hand. Or
Right.
I'll go up and make a left-hand layup with the left knee coming up with it.
Right.
And it's hard to do for some
well,
reason.
it's easier, right?
Yeah. Come on, man. You look a lot better when you
Yeah.
do it that way, too.
Yeah.
So with your brother being, what, 3 or 4 years older than you?
My brother's like 3.5 years older than me in age, but when he was a senior, I was an 8th grader. So perfect transition. So my dad went 8 straight years of coaching one of his boys. So really 12 years straight, because one of my cousins was a senior when my brother was a freshman. So it was the
And this-
Qualls name, man.
It's been floating around there for a long time.
For sure.
4, 4, 4. It's like
Yep.
3 or 4 years in between. Did you long for that opportunity to play with your brother, though?
Man,
Or was it something you didn't really think about?
it would have been great and probably bad at the same time because we like to shoot. So I was probably more of a playmaker than my brother. He was kind of just a spot shooter and everything like that. So
Right.
the joy I could have gotten just penetrating and dishing to him in like a weak side or strong side 3-point shot,
Right.
that would have been great. But
Assist would have went up.
assist would have went up. But it was probably the right thing that we didn't play together, just because he could do his thing. Once he left, I could do my thing. So
True.
it was kind of the perfect storm. So
Would you say that you picked up on some things pretty quickly compared to, if you were the older and he was the baby? Because a lot of times, that youngster doesn't want to get left out, so he or she is picking up on everything just that fast.
So just watching him, from an early age, I mean, he's my biggest supporter, and just looking up to him, seeing how he did things.
Right.
And just playing against him, at an early age, Dad would just take us up to the gym, and we would literally play like one-on-one games full court. Just like
Ooh.
like Wednesday night in Stratford, Oklahoma, nothing else to do or anything like that. We would just go up there, we'd get us some new kicks.
Right.
We had to go to the gym.
94 feet with it.
Yeah, and it was awesome, and it never fails. It always came down to the wire. So my dad always got put in the middle of it, so he'd have to break us up or something like that. But it always came down to the buzzer. So it was awesome.
Getting scrappy, man. I love that type of stuff right there because you can compete, you get this close, or maybe you even do come to fisticuffs, but it's all love at the end of the day.
Yep.
Now, did mom ever have to referee when y'all get home because it
Well,
spilled over?
See, when we'd have our outside games
Uh-huh.
and we could dunk, so
Oh,
at
yeah.
an early age too, that's when we almost came to blows. So mom would always have to break us up, and then
Hold on, you said y'all were outside when y'all could dunk. Now, my question about the dunking was it legitimate or did y'all let the rim down?
so like 6-foot goal probably when
All right.
we were young, and then it started increasing by 2 feet.
Yeah.
So my dad would always be on my team because I was the youngest, so
Mm-hmm.
it was only fair, right? But Garen, he would throw a fit if we ended up beating him or something like that. And we'd always play with a small ball so I could shoot it the right way.
Right.
So we always had the upper hand on him, so he would always get mad, and it would take it inside the house right before dinner, and mom said, leave it out there. Like,
Right.
it's all done. So that's kind of how those things went.
Man, that's TV style right there. That's movie-esque.
For sure. It's a good thing we didn't have a documentary back then.
For
so.
sure. Now, I'm going to try to pitch y'all against one another right here. Now, see, our family dynamic is similar. I'm the oldest of two. My younger brother is 2. His birthday was yesterday. All right,
Okay.
so he's 31. I'm 33.
Okay.
Now, he's mama's boy. He's
Yeah.
mama's baby. They tight. And me, I'm daddy's boy. That's my
Yeah.
guy. So which one would you say you're down to and who's your brother down to?
So I'm more like my dad, and my
Right.
brother's more like my mom. So my dad has a short fuse, and so do I. And I think you know that probably
Yeah, I got to
too.
see a little some of that.
But my brother has a pretty long fuse, but once he snaps,
Probably scary.
it's a wrap. So you don't want to be on his bad side, or get on to little brother, because that's kind of where he draws the line. But man, just having them, their support for all these years means everything. But yeah, I'm more like my dad, and he's like my mom for sure.
When it comes to the similarities, does that create friction when you got two people that are just alike? Because sometimes you need sort of, I guess, that opposite to balance you out, for lack of a better term.
It's crazy because we have no family issues.
Beautiful,
It's
man.
insane, and it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
So we're always on the same page. We'll do anything for each other. If there's a problem, we talk about it. There's no friction or anything. And the saying, I'm our brother's keeper, that's literally the truth. But just everybody's just all connected. And like I said, it's very, very uncommon for something to be like that nowadays, for sure. So
Love it. So now we're going to fast forward to you playing ball in high school. Not just playing ball in high school, you're playing for your dad.
right.
How was that? How was that experience? I was always told you're either not hard enough on your kid when you coach him or you're way too hard. It's there's not a lot of gray area there. So
Right.
how was it for you?
That's all I wanted to do. And just playing through elementary school, he never coached me until.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah, I think so. But just based on the younger days, I think he wanted me to be coached by other people, and then kind of at the end take it over, But even throughout that, he was always giving me, sideline advice and stuff like that, and just how much time we spent in the gym together. That's what I miss the most. But yeah, he didn't coach me until I think 7th or 8th grade. I think 8th grade is when we started kind of rocking and rolling. We had a really good group. I know a lot of people say that they don't want to coach their kid, or
I'm hearing more of that.
don't want to be coached by their dad. We took it on full force, and I don't think we would have had it any way else, because you don't get that bond back.
Right.
Just being on the road with him, and just being in the gym all those nights, the night before a game, putting up shots, you can't get that back. So my advice, if you have a kid and he's of that age, coach the heck out of him.
Especially if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly, because there is that that's mistaken, But yeah, he would put me, when I was a senior especially, he was the hardest on me. But he would put us with like a freshman or, like the old drill cutthroat. So 3-on-3 type drill, you score, you stay on. If you get scored on, you're out.
That's
so
right.
he would put me with like 2 freshmen, and he would say, go do it. So I would be ticked if I didn't win, even though he was preparing me to be better by sticking me with somebody that maybe was a lesser than, or was just started learning, the nuances of the high school game. But that's kind of those little things he drove me crazy with, but I knew at the same time why he was doing it.
Trying to show you how to lead.
For sure. For sure.
Competitive. How'd your freshman year go? Were you in the mix pretty early?
Man, so I averaged 29 a game when I was a freshman. I kind of just got thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
Just because the year before was my brother's senior year. They didn't have a really good year. So we were the group, okay?
Right.
So just coming in as freshmen, I think we started 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores that year.
Oh, man.
I think we went about like 15-10, something like that. We got beat out in regionals by Latta.
Yeah.
That's kind of when I made my mark in the playoffs that year, because I wasn't averaging a lot. And then in the playoffs, I averaged 42. So
42, huh?
we
It sounds like you kicked the door in, man.
we got beat by Latta both games in the playoffs, and that's who knocked us out. And then the rest is history. Then we kind of took off.
So your sophomore season, which is always a tricky one, man. I was talking to one of my coaching buddies, and we both sort of came to the agreement that when a freshman comes in and they get a lot of action early, like you just said you did, you still got some bad habits about you, because it's just a maturity thing.
For sure.
And after that 1 year of varsity, we think, okay, he's going to shed a lot of that.
Right.
But for about half of that sophomore season, you kind of still doing the same shit.
Yeah.
How was the run for you?
It was, so sophomore year, I averaged 35 and a half, and that was my best scoring year.
Out of all 4?
Out of all 4. Our group, I think we started, I think it was the same. I think it was at that point 3 sophomores, 2 juniors. So that same group just kind of going up with the years. We made a run. Nobody was really picking us or anything like that. So we ended up making the state tournament my sophomore year. It was down to the wire against Okarche, and, Ray West.
Yes, sir.
But we just kind of met our match, and we got out-rebounded. And I still remember like it was yesterday. They hit a shot right before halftime that gave them some momentum.
Were they up or down at that point?
They went up, I think, with a 3 at the end of the half, and we could never get it back. So I think we got beat by about 6 or 7. But I don't know, I think I had 45 that night.
Right.
So that kind of, we were still making our mark, but wasn't quite there yet. So that next year we were looking forward to a good year. So.
That junior year, huh?
Yeah.
That's a good segue, because I always wonder what motivates the young people. And now we're around about the same age, so it was a different time then.
Right.
Like, if you get a taste of it, you don't get full.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You get even more hungry. So what was that? Did y'all have to be driven that much when it came to the off season, getting ready for the junior run?
Yeah, I think like we were driven, but at the same time, I think a couple of us had a big ego and everything like that, and they thought it was just going to be rosy.
Right. That's boys for you.
Because preseason, we were getting a lot of hoopla now. So I think.
No more sneaking up on people.
Yeah, I went and did like a daily Oklahoman thing with a couple people like outside of the big house. So we were like 1 or 2 right there. So we were supposed to get there again. That year I averaged like 33. So still, scoring, but it's kind of going down a little bit because I'm getting a little bit more help because our teammates are getting better.
Were you okay with that, or was your ego a little inflated?
I was greatly okay with that because I was seeing boxing 1 and triangle and 2s and stuff like that, and I was wanting either a zone so I could just spot up and shoot, or just a straight man-to-man.
There you go.
But we boosted up our schedule that year. Dad put us in the Anadarko tournament, so we were either A or 2A every year. So we needed some better competition because we didn't see it in the regular season until the playoff time. But that junior year, we did well in that tournament, and then we won at Blanchard that year on their senior night. So we had some good wins, and it felt really good to beat them for sure. But then when the playoffs hit, we had our struggles for sure. We got upset in the regional final against Fort Towson. That was played at Eastern Oklahoma State College, and I hate that gym.
Yeah, man, Wilburton.
Never won there, I don't think.
I didn't either. Not even in
through college.
I didn't either.
But just going through that, I mean, I played literally like crap. But then that next game, we played Stewart at Ada, and Stewart was an old foe from way back in 8th grade. That was the only team that beat us in elementary school. So we had some revenge, and we started out hot against them. But the same thing kind of happened. We were up 15. We got into some foul trouble, and we ended up getting beat by like 5. So I didn't make the state tournament my junior year, and that's one of the most disappointing years my dad probably had. So
could you tell?
I could tell. He was very agitated. Just he felt like he failed, you know, and it was all us, to be honest. So
now that senior one, man, the last hurrah.
Yep.
Did you have a sense of urgency going into that last year?
Yeah, I mean, not so much for high school wise, but I wanted to make a name for myself going into college. I was getting a lot of interest from several different schools. OSU was talking to me, Central Arkansas, but never really made that jump to offer me or anything like that. So that's kind of what I was playing for, and obviously a state championship too. But knowing I was still going to play after that, it didn't bother me too much going into the year. But kind of once we started flowing, I was like, all right.
Got to get something.
Yeah, but I averaged, this is what's a crazy stat. My senior year, I averaged 30 on the nose and didn't have a 40-point game. So I was very consistent.
Was that the only season that you didn't have a 40-point game?
I think it was.
Look at you, man, scoring machine.
Yeah.
So when that average went, it sounds like that was your lowest average of all 4 years. Now, on paper, just at face value, that looks like regression. But based on what you told me about y'all's team getting a little more loaded, sounds like progression.
For sure. All my numbers were, the assists were going up and everything like that. So I was becoming a more complete player. Couldn't necessarily handle the ball as much as I would have liked to have. And that's one of my regrets just throughout my player development, that I didn't take as serious as I should have. But yeah, that senior year, going into that, my teammates were getting a lot better.
Yeah.
That year we played in the Tournament of Champions up here.
Never got a chance to play in that, man. I'm still hot. Still tight.
Yeah, and it was played at the fairgrounds, so.
I wasn't a fan of the fairgrounds.
A little slippery of a floor.
Yeah.
But that first round we played Booker T. Washington, so I was annoyed by Tyler Lockett by the end of the game.
Championship team right there. No, did you graduate in 10 or 11?
11.
Oh, so they were
Coach
undefeated.
Sills was coaching that team, and Jawan Parker was a sophomore, and it was a squad for sure. But we needed that, that year, just playing against those good guys. That second round, we played Tulsa East Central with Drew Wilson.
Another good squad.
Got beat by them as well, and then that last 7th place game, we played Preston, which was a Class 2A rival as well. We beat them in the last 10 seconds of the game. So we knew we were probably going to see them again. Kind of going throughout the year, we get to the playoff time, and our first real competition was Millwood, regional finals.
Yeah.
So
the Wood.
They were probably the worst team that we could have matched up with. Because they played just like us. Yeah. And they were better at it.
Gotcha.
So just playing them, we should have slowed it down, but we didn't know any other way, because, we were first good shot, put it up.
Right. That's how y'all have been doing it, right?
Yeah, we averaged probably 80 points a game our senior year, and holding people, under 50. So it was really good. My dad was a zone coach. We just mixed it up, full court press, drop back into a zone, be active out of it. But Millwood wasn't a good match for us, so we ended up getting beat by about 13 that night. We win the next night against Carnegie to get into a state tournament.
There you go. You returned.
That first round, we played with Tonga, which was a bad draw for us. They were undefeated at the time. We played that at Choctaw, and I played absolutely horrible.
Stunk it up.
Stunk it up.
Man.
I think Central Arkansas was there to watch me play. Didn't hear back from them after that night. But we grew a hole, and then we battled back. I mean, it was crazy atmosphere in there, probably the best atmosphere I've played in. And it came down to overtime, you know, and I blocked a shot at the end of the game against Javis Flynn. So that sent us into the semifinals where we played Talihina.
Oh, okay.
And
So hold up, man. You're a hell of a storyteller. Because when you started off by saying that you stunk it up, I'm like, oh, well, I'm guessing that was the end.
Yeah.
But y'all made it out of that
We
one.
made it out of that
Okay.
one somehow by the skin of our teeth. So then we played Talihina. I was really good friends with Taggart Lockhart. He played at Arkansas Little Rock for a little bit. Jordan Eagle Road, he played football at OU. So they had some talent for sure.
Yeah.
And crazy thing about that game is they got out to like a 12-2 lead on us, 4 straight threes, bam, bam, bam.
Oh, man.
We get down by 2 at half going into the break.
All right.
And then they just kind of wore us out. Offensive boards, you know, we couldn't really match up with them, and then we had to go man, which we didn't like to do.
Wasn't y'all's cup of tea, huh?
And then we were kind of just fighting out of a hole. So we ended up getting beat by 14. I still remember 71-57. And the crazy thing about that is they had 3 guys that scored. So
Ooh.
Taggart, I think, had like 27. Eagle Road had like 24, and then one of their shooters had like 19 or 21. 3 guys that score and we get beat.
First of all, shout out to their role players, man. That's called knowing what you do.
For sure.
Staying out of the way.
But they go on to, you know, win the state title against Preston. Preston upset Millwood. Just 2 contrasting styles. You know, Preston was a slow it down team. Millwood was up and down, run and gun.
Who's
So if
going to
you could-
impose your will?
Yeah, if you could take them out of that, you could beat them. But we just didn't slow it down on them. So.
Your individual performance, how was that? In your,
I had 30 that night, but it was a rough 30.
Rough 30.
I think I probably scored 30 off of 24, 25 shots.
Yeah.
But it
Very
was
inefficient.
one of those, man. I wish I could take that first half back for sure, because I think we could have built up a lead. So
I hear that. Man, you know, it's very interesting hearing about that last one.
yeah,
It wasn't your last career game, but it was your last
Right.
one in high school. Man, that hurts, man. Unless
Yeah.
it's a W.
yep. Got to end it at State Fair Arena, which I always wanted to play in.
Right.
So at least it kind of ended on that note for sure.
So that spring, rolling into what will be your freshman year in college, what did that look like? I mean, I would imagine everybody takes a little bit of a pause going into the spring break, recalibrate,
Right.
vacate, whatever, and then you come back. And a lot of the guys who say they have plans of doing more, they do absolutely nothing
Right.
from the end of March until, till May.
Right.
What was your regimen? Or did you sit
Well,
back and chill too?
I didn't get a break, to be honest.
Okay.
So I had to play in a couple of like area games, like the Ada Area All-Star game. I got to play in the Phase 7 game that summer.
That's a big one.
So Oklahoma versus Texas. And then I've had All-State. So I had 3 All-Star games that couldn't really get out of. So that was pretty much my regiment the whole summer. And then I, committed to Northern Oklahoma College in Enid. So it's
Yeah.
when I first started lifting weights. So
Really?
Yeah.
There's got to be something to that, because so many of us don't really either get introduced to the weights at all,
Right.
or don't start taking it seriously until it's time to go to college, man.
I was my dad was a big push-up, sit-up guy, like body weight type stuff. So I
Right.
did those every night, and I was about 140 pounds soaking wet, but I was stronger than what I looked. I'm gonna stick to that. So.
I got you. So was anybody beating your door down? How did it end up being Northern in
Man,
Enid?
I knew I didn't make good enough on my ACT for one, and then I didn't want to get locked into anywhere. So going to a Division II school, I felt like just locked me in,
Yeah.
and we didn't have all these good transfer rules as they do now, and COVID and stuff like that, where you can play at about 4 or 5 different schools.
Yeah, no
But-
portal.
Yeah.
It wasn't no transferring up.
For sure. So if you go to a 4-year, I felt like right after high school, you were pretty much set in stone. So I knew I was going to be a qualifier. So
Right.
I knew that I could leave after 1 year of JUCO. But yeah, I just wanted to play because JUCO, I feel like, is the best talent in college basketball. For one, well,
Never heard
as
anybody
far
say
as
that.
athleticism goes,
Okay, yeah.
I feel like it's filled with Division I prospects because why do people go to a D or a JUCO to get to a D1?
That's right.
Usually,
Yeah. And if they came right out of high school, either they had some behavioral issues
Right.
or they had some academic issues.
For sure.
But it says nothing about them as the athlete, though.
yeah, exactly, and that's literally probably the most athletic people I've played against in my whole career was
That's a good point.
during those 2 years of junior college. So
So you did stay 2.
yeah.
So what was the experience like? And I know that's a broad question, but what I really mean is, man, you got to be a dog or a grinder to make it through and get out of there.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure you played with a lot of guys who may have started there, didn't last very long for whatever reason. It's a lot of freedom.
Yep.
In those small towns with not a lot of stuff to do, it's easy to backslide and end up back home.
Sure, for sure. I was pretty blessed by getting to play in Enid, one of the biggest junior college. Well, I guess it would be the biggest junior college town in Oklahoma. So I had a couple offers after my freshman year of junior college. I had one to Wofford College out in South Carolina.
Okay.
And then one to Stephen F. Austin.
Nacogdoches, Texas, man.
So if I was to go back, I probably would have taken one of those. But everything happens for a reason. So I came back for a sophomore year because I tried to get more, right? So there's a reason why they say the JUCO life.
Yeah, that's true.
You're the only ones living on campus as athletes. So no regular students are hardly staying on campus unless they're, academically high or something like that of that
true.
sort. So the only people really living on campus are athletes. So you're kind of fending for yourself, eating ramen noodles and whatnot.
Yeah,
So-
man. I'm gonna tell you the way I would sort of make a judgment on the town. 'Cause I went to Murray State, so
Right.
obviously we were in the same conference, just not
Yep.
playing at the same time. But I'm like, okay. I was looking at food spots.
Right.
And Enid had a few more. I said, okay, I'd be fine if I was here. Pizza
Yep.
joint, tacos, chicken, burgers.
Yep.
It was all fast. You know what I mean?
sure.
Of course. So, can you remember your welcome to college moment, man, to where you realized, like, yo, this is a different level here, whether it was preseason work or practice or individuals, whatever?
I think just the grind of it. It's an everyday grind. I mean, high school, you can somewhat go through the motions
Yeah.
just based on talent.
That's true.
Well, if you don't show up to be ready to practice, you ain't getting anything done. So just be an everyday guy, and that was hard for me because I wasn't the best practice player.
Even from your high school days?
Even from high school days, and maybe a little bit of that was just knowing my dad was the coach, so I could
Maybe.
be a little bit more lax on things, and that's just human nature to do,
Yeah.
But throughout the junior college experience, just being ready to work every single day, and just putting in that extra work because there's nothing else to do. But there's a lot of trouble in JUCO experience that you can get into. So,
I'm telling you,
sure.
you wouldn't think you'd be able to find much of anything, trouble included, in those
Yeah.
areas. Oh, but it's out there for you.
For sure.
And
for
then as
sure.
far as the authorities in those areas, there are no big fish to fry. So
Yep.
we're going to get all the little ones, man.
Yep.
Did you have pretty successful freshman year by your standards?
Freshman year was just kind of getting my feet wet and getting used to that style of ball. I think I averaged like 11 and a half. We had a really good sophomore group at that time. Xavier McClish, he was from Midwest City, was a really good player. I think he was a All-American honorable mention guy that year. But we were, one win from the national tournament. Eastern
man.
had a slew of guys from Memphis that could play. And that's who we got beat out in the region tournament by. So that kind of ended our season that freshman year. So.
Did y'all? Now you said you had a good sophomore class. Were they deep?
Yeah, they were pretty deep, but our freshman class as a whole was a lot better put together. So
Right.
that's kind of what that buildup was. them teaching us the ropes and then us going forward for that next year. So
How was that next year, man? You're one of the big dogs now. Not a senior, but a sophomore.
So we had a lot to prove, and Coach Chambers was a really good coach. But that sophomore year, I can't remember exactly our record, but we got to within another win, another national tournament. We get matched up with Connors. So
Yeah.
they're the big
Muse in
dog.
them.
Yeah, they're the big dog in that conference in Oklahoma. But then we had a couple kids, I don't know, that didn't necessarily know their role, but we were kind of weak in some spots, but we were very strong in some others. So just the balance there wasn't like if we would have had those sophomores from the year before for another year, we could have made a run at a national title.
Yeah.
But just those little missing pieces, if we would have had a couple of those, we could have made more of a deep run. But all in all, I had a really good year, averaged like 13 and a half or so. We went down to visit with Stephen F. Austin when Brad Underwood was there. A couple more offers, but nothing that I signed really late. So
On purpose, just holding out.
I was holding out as long as I could.
Now, did you have one particular that you were hoping for, or like sitting back waiting on?
So I kind of was real with myself. So I think as high as the level I could have played at would have been like a North Texas or like a Stephen F. Austin or something like that.
I got you.
By that time there, I don't think I could have played at Oklahoma State or anything like that. So I was real with myself. 6'1" can only go so far. So,
I got you. Yeah.
But I think my offensive package was as good as anybody's if I was allowed to do the things that I could do. But yeah, I signed really late, but I was very thankful for the people that waited on me. So,
Last junior college question. In my experiences, where I was, and it could have just been where I was and whose instruction I was under and all of that, but it was tough to get all of those guys, myself included, to buy in, man. It's like you had so many egos, so many people that were the guy or one of the guys from wherever they went to school in high school, to get us all on one accord, even though we got along so great off the court. But on the court, man, people had different agendas, man. Did you see or deal with any of that?
I did, just from exactly what you said. I mean, everybody being the guy in high school, coming together as one, it's not easy, especially when you're only planning on to be together for at most 2 years. And from a coach's perspective too, that's not easy. So we dealt with a little bit of that, but I think all in all, we were pretty solid group, just being put together and stuff like that. So I don't think we dealt with it as much as a lot of people did.
Sometimes less can be more, man. As crazy as that sounds. So when you say you signed late, where to?
So I went to Northeastern.
Your first stop?
Yeah, I went to Northeastern State and Tahlequah. Played for the legendary coach, Coach Gibson. He's literally probably my most favorite coach besides my dad.
Yeah.
Just the personality factor and just like the old schoolness and everything like that. He was a great guy to learn from.
So when you got there, you basically took a couple of jumps, so to speak, from the junior college level to the NCAA Division II level.
Right.
Did everything go up a notch as far as strength and conditioning goes? And can you think of that moment where he turned into something different than what he was whenever he was recruiting you?
Yeah, so the group that I was with was very, very good. I played with the most talented kid that I've ever played with. His name's Brighton Hobbs, and he just tried out for the Big Three the other day, so he's still hooping. He's really good friends with Jason Tatum. So having him, I wish he would have trusted us a little bit more that year, because I think we could have been a lot better.
Gotcha.
That year with Coach Gibson, we started out 10-2. I mean, we were ranked.
That's strong.
We were ranked 17th, 18th in the country, and then after Christmas, we kind of just went to a downside skid. I don't know for whatever reason, but we started struggling. But we had some really good wins. I think we went 16-13, somewhere around there. So started off 10-2 and ended 16-13.
Yeah.
Something happened there.
Something happened.
but I can't pinpoint it. But we ended up beating the national champion that year twice. So
Oh, man.
Central Missouri won it that year.
Just had their number.
Yeah, that would have been 2013, 2014. And then we got beat out in the semifinals of the MIAA tournament by UCO. So, yeah.
Damn, what?
But all in all, it was a really good year.
Was it a good one for you individually?
It was a good one for me. I averaged like 9 or 10 a game, but I shot the ball extremely well.
Good.
Once you start elevating, your shots get a little lessened, especially when you're playing with a really good player like Brighton, which was our point guard.
For sure.
I started, the first 20 games, and then I came off the bench because we needed a little bit more spurt and stuff like that.
Was that explained to you, or you were able to figure that out?
It was hard for me, to be honest, because freshman, sophomore year, all throughout, high school, I started.
Yeah.
So it was hard to get ready for the game because, right after warm-ups, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But right after warm-ups, I went to sit down.
Yeah, you got to ice it a little bit.
It was a different aspect for sure, but I just kind of had it in my head, cheer for your teammates, stand up. That way you won't have to get ready.
That's true.
As long as you're ready, you don't have to get ready. And, just being ready to catch and shoot coming off the bench.
Did you find yourself on the floor at the end of some games when the game is in the balance?
For sure.
See, that's what matters, man.
That's what going into our play-in game, the way the MIAA worked, if you were one of those lesser seeds, you had to play an on-site game first. So this is a funny story.
Sounds like the new COVID rule.
Coach Gibson, he didn't take anything, right? So
Right.
very
Nice.
old school. Well, stupid me. It was a very important game. I mean, our season's on the line, and we were playing at Washburn, and the whole band chant, shot clock,
Sure.
counting it down. Right before the half, I fell for it, and that's the worst
Jacked
I've ever
one up.
worst I've ever gotten chewed out. And he asked what the hell I was doing, and I didn't have an answer. So
Usually,
it was
but that's a
just-
trap though, because usually that's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. But
So he wanted some feedback.
I fell for that, but it all worked out in the end. I came up clutch in the second half, so I think he let me off the hook a little bit.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I love that story right there, man, because I don't care where you play or how much this game evolves. You still got some basic core principles that'll never change.
For
Like
sure.
you have to be able to adjust.
Right.
Of course, you were a starter at heart.
Right.
Well, that's just not the boat you're in right here. So
Right.
what do? You
Right.
gonna transfer right there on the spot? It's
Right.
like you just dug deep and figured out how to do it.
I mean, kids got to get that in their head, and I get the transfer rules, but I hate them at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in coaching or playing or anything like that right now, but I always keep up with it. I always know what's going on.
Yeah, man, I'll be seeing you on the snap. Got
just-
the laptop and the flat screen.
Yeah,
He's still a junkie.
So it's it's in my heart, but I wish kids would understand to, sit it through, watch it play out, and then adjust to that. So
Yeah. There's something to be said about paying dues, I think.
right.
Now, somewhere in there, you got injured, right?
Yeah, well, there was a thing that happened. So after my junior year, we had a coaching change. So
Okay.
Coach Gibson retired, and then we come back for our senior year, and it was not going to go well.
You could tell.
I could tell definitely from the start. So I ended up quitting, is what I ended up doing, and then basically taking my redshirt year, my senior year. And that's when I transferred to East
ECU.
Central Oklahoma. Yep.
Okay.
And then played my 5th year. So
If you don't mind, what went into quitting, man? Was there a moment, or did y'all have it out and then right then, okay, this is it, bam, done? Or you just
So
saw the
I-
handwriting on the wall?
Yeah, I saw it wasn't going to work, especially in that league.
Yeah.
The way that his style was going to be played and everything like that. So I knew I had a redshirt year to use, and I knew I had some strings kind of behind the scenes that I knew I could work out.
Yeah.
And my assistant coach at Northeastern State, his brother was the head coach at East Central.
Okay.
So he ended up not getting the job at NSU, so I kind of used him to kind of go between the lines a little bit, and knew that would be a better experience for me. I didn't want to go out on a bad note my senior year.
Right.
I wanted to win because I had always been a winner.
There you go.
So I took advantage of that. So I quit school, had to pay back half of my scholarship. But I knew it was going to be worth it in the long run. So I left at Christmas time, enrolled at East Central, just was a practice player for that half a year, and then we were full go again my 5th year. So.
Were you making your own decisions at that point, or was mom and dad advising you during that time period?
I mean, a little bit, but I kind of took it upon myself.
They didn't try to talk you out
I'm
of
the
it?
type of person that if you don't do it yourself, it's not going to get done.
Fair enough.
So I used that as, a ploy to kind of go between the lines a little bit,
Right.
and hopefully it worked out.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So when you got to East Central, you said you were a practice player, getting in the mix, doing what you can, and then fast forward to the fall.
Right.
How does that look?
Didn't take care of my body the way I should have.
Over the summer, you mean?
Over that summer and over that, whole year that I wasn't playing. My nutrition was bad. Just did some stupid things. Drank a little bit too much,
lifestyle,
the party scene, and everything like that. But I wasn't playing. I didn't know how to handle it. Not saying that that's how you should have handled it, because it's not.
True.
But if I could go back, I would have done things completely different. And then I ended up dealing with shin splints that whole 5th year, and I could never practice how I wanted to, and never played as much as I thought I should have. But when you can't trust somebody to practice, how are you going to trust them in a game?
Yeah.
So that was really, really mental for me to try to overcome, and I didn't handle it very well. There was days I didn't want to practice.
Was that just you feeling sorry for yourself?
A little bit.
Yeah.
And then halfway, because I couldn't practice how I wanted to with the injuries and stuff like that. But I'd never been in the training room hardly until that year. So it was very frustrating knowing I should be on the floor over somebody else. But at the end of the day, I was still a good teammate. Won a conference championship that year in the Great American Conference.
Yeah.
So besides all the personal things for me, at the end, I mean, it was rewarding for the team. So I'll take that on the chin,
Back to that word, adjustments, man.
Yep.
You've been making them. Now, for as much as a coach could, under those circumstances, would you say the head coach or the staff collectively were pretty supportive or understanding about what you were dealing with at that time?
I don't think they knew completely. You know how coaches are. I mean, they always think you should be able to practice or whatever you're dealing with, you know. So I wish I would have had a conversation with them, like deep-hearted conversation of, hey, here's what I'm dealing with, like I want to practice, but I don't know if I can, and stuff like that. So those conversations were never happened or anything like that, and I wish they would have. But like I said, it's dead and gone, and there's no going back and changing it. So it all worked out in the end.
You got that degree though, didn't you?
I did.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. So that is the one thing that we hadn't talked a whole lot about, because you got your master's too, right?
Yep.
Were you able to start on that path before you were done playing?
So no, I finished. So basically, my year at NSU didn't even count. So none of my credits transferred. So I was basically behind a year, or technically on track the same year, So I ended up getting a kinesiology degree, and then once I started coaching is when I started working on my master's.
Did you go to coaching immediately after your 5th year of playing?
So after that spring, I took a position at Northeastern Oklahoma
NEO, huh?
College. Yep.
Okay.
So went up to Miami, and that's kind of when I started working on my master's that fall.
What year was that?
That
fall
would have been in 2016.
Okay, 2016.
2016, 2017.
Now, was that strictly a strategic move to get the master's, or you knew you wanted to coach?
So I knew I wanted to coach from an early age, just seeing my dad do it,
man.
And then my brothers in coaching. I didn't know what else I would have done at that point. So I think that's why, honestly, why I did it. And plus, I love ball. So I went there that year to start doing the coaching and stuff like that, and under a very successful program. Coach Jackson, I still talk to him every once in a while. He was my other assistant coach buddy, but I coached under Dustin Grover, a really successful coach, and it was a really good year.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of where all the coaching stuff started happening.
I'm always interested in a young guy or a young lady for the same purpose who goes into coaching at the college level, because you got to be 23-ish,
Yep.
24 years old,
Yep.
and depending on where you are, the oldest kid in that program might be
Yep.
that exact same age.
Yep.
So how do you communicate in a way where you get respected, but you're not too cool to where they look at you as a peer?
I mean,
you know?
there's a definitely a fine line, and sometimes I struggled with it, you know, between wanting to be their buddy and then wanting to be their coach. So
Right.
I think it's hard. It's really hard. I failed at it, you know. So I was only there, you know, for a year, but I think that's a learned trait as you go on. But if I could have went back, I probably would have waited more so to start coaching and not go right into it as soon as I started playing.
At any level?
At any level for me, personally, from my experience, just because I still had that itch to play.
Yeah.
So I knew once I still had that it was going to be very hard to coach people because I was still trying to live through them, you know, and say, well, this is what you should do, and there's just constant friction there. So me personally, I wish I would have waited a couple years to go into it for sure.
That fire was still burning.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you left NEO, where was the next stop?
Well, the next stop was at Northern Oklahoma College in Enid. Was only there for a couple months. Just the fire went out. I didn't want to do it anymore. Was homesick a little bit. And then I ended up going home and moving back in with mom and dad. You know, nobody wants to do that, but sometimes it's necessary to kind of figure out what exactly you want to do.
Yeah. Did they understand where you were at that point?
Yeah, and I was struggling with a lot of mental, well, now that mental health is a thing now, I didn't know that's what it was then. But just struggling with things like that is when I needed mom and dad, to kind of help me navigate through that. And I started working at a local rec center there in Pauls Valley, and that's kind of basically took a break for a little bit. So, and then that's when I met you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got to fast forward up to that. So it's fall 2018. I get the head boys job at Tecumseh High School, and that was my second stint.
Yeah.
Like back to back. And this with this staff, me, you, and old Alan Brewer, I didn't necessarily get to put that staff together. So I was coming in cold, meeting the both of you. So how did you end up getting that gig, since I didn't call you up and be like, hey?
Man, the athletic director helped me out with his name again, Schaefer.
Jeff Schaefer.
Coach Schaefer recruited my brother to play baseball when he was a head coach at Seminole State.
Okay.
So him and my dad kind of knew of each other and stuff like that. So we saw that it had opened, just like a lay coaching job.
Yeah.
I was still living at home, and I knew Tecumseh was, 35, 40 minutes from me. So it was an easy drive.
Yeah, you
so
made that commute all the time.
That's what I went with. So, me napping on the benches and stuff like that.
I'm telling you, man.
Sometimes, I missed coaching throughout that year that I wasn't. So that was my way to get back into it. So that's kind of what I went with. So
it sounds like that year off served a purpose for you then.
it did. It helped me work out some stuff that I needed to work out and things that I still struggle with to this day. But it's an ever-loving process, and it's a journey, not a sprint. But no, I'm still thankful for that year for sure, because there's so many memories that still come up. You know?
Man.
That was a special year for me for sure.
So take me through your recollection of that year, because see, we were only assembled for 1 year, and then just to keep it transparent, I remember going through my evaluation on the 1st of April, which was kind of tricky because that's when people play the jokes.
Yeah.
But that's when old Coach Schaefer brought me into the office and told me, hey, we're not going to bring you back as the coach next year. And he looked me right square in the face and told me, I don't think you're ready to be a head coach.
Yeah.
Tough pill to swallow, but hey.
it was definitely tough to, and I know we had that conversation, when that happened and everything like that. But coaching those ninth grade kids, man, was the highlight of my year.
Undefeated, man.
We went 19-0, and those kids just graduated.
They literally just graduated.
It was kind of a tearjerker, and through the death that year, I think it brought us a lot closer than what we even thought we would be.
Yeah.
But that year was an experience in itself. I don't know if we got the full buy-in from the guys that we were trying to look for. But I think if we could have had a lot better squad than what we did. I felt like we still underachieved a little bit just from the talent perspective that we had and the draw we got in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We couldn't have asked for a better one.
I'm telling you.
But there was a couple games, that we should have won, but sometimes the ball don't fall your way.
I think I went to Millwood after that, so I stayed in coaching, but
Right.
we sort of stayed connected to some degree.
Right.
And I was like, okay, my man, he's getting real fit, what
Yeah.
I mean, taking the health to another level. But we gotta address that sore spot, man. We definitely lost a soldier.
Yep.
Along that journey, man. Or Edward Carey Jr.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that that took a toll on me in a different type of way that I wasn't even able to really pinpoint until it became hindsight.
Right.
I was heavy, man, and I can remember I was one of the last people that he reached out to before his untimely demise, and I thought that made me feel a way because we had just met like 9 months before.
Yep.
So he was a senior, and a lot of the other people who he had reached out to before were folks that he went way back with.
Right.
And I'm like, I made the list.
Right.
Wow. And
Right.
so, and I just knew because you had told me vaguely that you had really had to take a moment or some moments and deal with some things as a result of that. It took a toll on you, man. Could you speak to some of that?
Well, I mean, we were closer than what I thought we were.
Yeah.
And I guess, dealing with a whole group of kids, you don't think about that one, right?
That's right.
So when you call me, I mean, every time Easter rolls around, I think about it. Because it was around that time. I think it might have been that day on a Easter Sunday that you called me and told me that. And I didn't know what to say. If you remember the conversation, I'm pretty sure I was shocked. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
But I had just seen him the week before because he was our baseball manager and I was helping with baseball.
He's smiling all over the place.
Yeah, the brightest smile in the room. And I can still hear him in my head, but looking like Zion Williamson.
That's right.
But every time I see Zion Williamson, I think of old Ed.
That's a
man,
great reference.
He was a hard worker.
Football guy too.
Football guy.
Just signed that letter of intent to go to Langston.
Yeah, I still wish I would have known,
Yeah.
So maybe we could have helped him and stuff like that. But people deal with things differently.
They do.
Sometimes you can't control the outcome that they make, and then we all have to live with that. So
For sure. So, when you threw yourself into the next chapter, started working on your body, started monitoring what goes in there, and the next thing you know, I think you were working at a gym, right? You were managing to some degree, weren't you?
Yeah.
What was that next chapter like? So that was 2019. It's 2022 now. So those 3 years, what all did that consist of?
Just really started caring about myself.
Yeah.
Throughout that process, so when I was coaching at NEO is when I tore my Achilles. So
Forgot about that chapter. That's why you don't be hooping that much.
don't be hooping anymore. But just throughout that process, I gained some unnecessary weight.
Gotcha.
And I was never a chubby kid.
Right.
So just seeing myself go to that degree, I thought, oh no,
Yeah.
here we go. So I had to do something about it. Started doing Herbalife stuff because I was bedridden, throughout my Achilles, so I couldn't work out, couldn't do anything. I was just laying around, eating whatever.
Come on now.
And then when I went to LA for a vacation with my dad and my brother, and I had my shirt off, and then looking back at those pictures, I was like,
You would
I'm
not
that
represent.
guy. I'm that guy. And I never thought I would have been. So
Right.
it can happen easy. But that's when I started trying to take care of myself, working out regularly, And then just leading up to, the pandemic that we had is when I really started understanding, hey, well, we got to do this and this, we didn't have a gym to work out in.
Right. And to get real innovative.
Yeah, and that's when I started, training my brother, in the old Qualls garage, just a hot box.
You were training your brother?
Yeah.
I knew y'all were working out together, but I didn't know that you were the lead dog on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had to make up our workouts and everything like that. Basically, just Dad being a coach, we had equipment just laying around at the house, So a hot box in there for sure, because that was the summertime, so 95-degree heat. But we got down and dirty. But he ended up losing, 14, 15 pounds throughout that time, and I lost quite a bit too, just leaned out. And then I started understanding, wow, I could do this as a job. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of when I went to Southeastern Oklahoma State as a sports performance intern. Mm-hmm. Was only there for a couple months just because, we were in and out of the weight room with COVID being still an issue and everything like that.
Right.
I wasn't making hardly any money.
That part you did tell me.
Wasn't making anything, man. And
intern, key word, right?
Yeah, and I had a bad apartment there.
Right.
That's a year that I'd like to forget about for sure. But then I ended up, from there, my buddy was coming up here as a land surveyor, and I was just like, dude, you know what? I'm coming with you.
I'm going.
Like, we'll figure out something. Like, I'll cut down your rent in half. We'll live together. We'll make do. And that's when I started being a personal trainer. So,
yeah. You weren't even seeking that, were you?
I wasn't. Not at all. I was wanting to do like strength and conditioning coaching and stuff like that, mm-hmm. but didn't want to wait around and try to pass a test or anything like that. I knew my degree was a kinesiology degree. A lot of people accept that, as they should, mm-hmm. Instead of just, taking a test and so anybody can
walking
pass
right
a
off
test.
the street.
So I think you should get qualified for going to school for that thing. But then that's when, I started personal training. I was doing about 80 sessions a day, or a week, sorry.
You say, hold on now.
80 sessions a week,
Okay.
Making adequate money for it, but I just got burnt out. So now I'm doing fitness managing and everything like that. I run a stretching studio, so we're called Stretch Lab.
Yeah.
So we're on our first location right now. We're about to open our second one in August. We do anything from flexibility, mobility, range of motion, sports performance. We also do injury recovery and injury prevention.
All the stuff that youngsters don't give a damn about.
It's awesome.
We need it though.
Stretching is the most important thing, but it's the most neglected too.
Very much so.
So we deal with anybody from 7, 8 years old to 100. The oldest person that we have, I think he's 94.
Really?
So it's a very interesting dynamic. We're individually franchised, so anybody off the street, if they got enough money, they can open one up, and as long as they have people that they trust that can run it, it's going to be successful. So
now, are you overseeing or are you hands-on with it?
So I'm a sales manager, so
okay.
In the studio every day, making sure we're getting people in, getting them signed up for memberships and that alone. But then we have certified flexologists that do the stretching. So they're certified in stretching, and that's what they do. So it's a pretty interesting thing for sure.
That sounds like you though, man.
Yeah, you need to come do it.
Hey, listen, I will come do that, man.
Yeah.
I will come do that because it's much needed. I tell people all the time, I still can't stand right up and bend over at the waist, pause, and then touch my toes without bending my knees. I can't do it. Never have been able to. So we'll start with that, you know what I mean? Now, I'm going to rewind just a little bit because I want to ask you a question. Since we've been coaching and you know what it feels like and what it looks like when you see that light bulb come on when you're instructing a youngster or a whole team when it starts looking like it's supposed to look. Yeah. And there's a gratifying feeling whenever they get it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Was it the same way when you were personal training?
Well, I think we, as athletes, we take simple things that we think for granted.
Right.
So hand-eye coordination, balance.
Yeah.
stick your leg out on your right side, hand out on your left on this side. Like, people don't, like the average, I say average, but the non-athlete person, that doesn't click in their brain.
Yeah,
so
that's a
you
lot.
have to, it's a lot like coaching a basketball team, you know, like perfecting an offense or something like that. But once they get that movement down that you're trying to instruct, it's very, very gratifying, because then they're going to see the results that they've been looking for. In offense, you're going to actually score a bucket when you should, and it's not going to be helter-skelter, as we've seen for sure. It's very frustrating when they can't get that movement down or that offense. So I think it goes hand in hand for sure.
That's giving it all back. I got 3 more things I want to throw at you, my man. Uncle life.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You got 2 nieces, right?
2 nieces.
What's that like to be an uncle, which I've always wanted to be that, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to, sentence my brother to parenthood just yet, but I always wanted to, be an uncle. And then you got nieces, man.
Yep.
How is that?
They're the most precious things. My oldest niece, she just turned 7, I think.
7 with a question mark?
Yeah, 6 or 7, and then my other one just turned 3. So they're crazy ages right now.
Yeah.
So I'm their Uncle Day Day for sure. But they're amazing.
Are they different? Are they way different?
Now, yes, but just growing up, no. So Myers she's the oldest. She's starting her own, personality, watching cheerleaders and stuff like that, She might not be the athlete in the family, but she's is going to be a cheerleader, I'm sure, or in a drama or a play or something like that, But the little one, she's like, you know how the second kid is.
Yeah,
they're
right.
always into everything, man. But they're go. She's probably going to be the more athletic or sporty one.
You can see it already.
I can see it. That's totally fine. Not everybody is made out to be an athlete or whatever the case may be. I mean, go be successful in your own little thing.
That's right.
But they're amazing. I can't ask for anything more. So
very dope, man. Hobbies. What can we catch Dalen or Uncle Day Day to the nieces? What can we catch you doing off the clock?
Man, working out, obviously.
Yeah.
Just trying to take care of myself. Sports is still in my, genre.
Yeah, man, it's got to be.
I just finished a rec league volleyball tournament, or whatever. We had like an 8-week season.
That's a little less taxing than running down the court.
Yeah, a little less taxing.
Okay.
Got to be careful with the Achilles. But when I first moved up here, I was in a men's basketball league, so it still hasn't left me yet, man. I'm about to be 30 years old.
August, right?
August.
See, I'll be remembering.
Dirty 30, But just doing those things. Hiking and stuff like that, hanging out with the missus,
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I don't know what's in my future, and only one person does. But
Facts.
we'll see what happens eventually. I haven't totally ruled out coaching again.
Yeah.
And that's still deep down in my blood, and it burns the fuel. But I'm never saying never, and I'm not saying that I want to do it either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like whatever happens. I'm just kind of going with the flow. And
Yeah. Literally one day at a time.
Yeah.
Like all those cliches that we get sick of hearing, that ever so relevant.
Right.
And I've learned just, on my own journey, like looking at the big picture, that can get overwhelming sometimes.
Yep.
Because I'm going to just do what's in front of me.
Right. And that's kind of what I try. I just try to win the day.
There you go.
That's kind of my slogan. Work hard and be nice to people. That's kind of, I picked up on that a little bit. But I've become a better dude over the past 5-6 years, still have some struggles here and there, but getting closer to God.
There you go.
So, family guy, family means the world to me. I'm just trying to win the day. That's all I can do. So
We got to put that other phrase on a T-shirt. He said, work hard, be nice to people.
work hard, be nice to people.
Yeah, I'm telling that to my big-headed boys. Okay, here's how we'll wrap it up. I want you to look back into the archives, my man. Okay, at every level you played ball, a game that you lost, you had no business losing. And you go back to it and run it back right now if you could. So which one of those games you going back to? Who's the opponent? What's the level? Give me the whole circumstance.
Every year, huh? I got you. Freshman year was regional, first round of regionals against Latta. Shouldn't have lost that one.
Yeah. Oh, they beat y'all twice that year, right?
They beat us twice,
Oh.
but the first one we shouldn't have. definitely shouldn't have got beaten by. Well, I'll say both of them. Shoot.
That's the competitor.
I mean, Latta was a really good team, well-respected program, still to this day. My buddy was actually on that team. That's an assistant at Dell, so he'll appreciate that. But we were both freshmen at the time, but we shouldn't have got beat by those 2 games. Sophomore year, still that first round of state, man, against Okarche. We shouldn't have gotten beat that game. Junior year, we shouldn't have got upset either one, you know. And then senior year, we probably just got beat by a better opponent.
But you want to run it back?
I wish I would have played better, for sure.
There you go.
So those are really the only handful that we shouldn't have gotten beat. So.
Gotcha. Well, man, listen, I got nothing but love for you. I wish we would have gotten to spend more time as coaches, but I think we formed a bond that we can say sustained in the course of time.
For sure, man. I mean, I looked up to you as a big brother still to this day, so I appreciate you and everything that you taught me, and I hope you learned a little bit from me as well.
I damn sure did, man. So you keep stepping, brother, and we're going to be in touch.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, man.